Chapter 1. The first thing that Ben Bowman liked about Tolliver was the large percentage of people around his age. Small towns across the country were notorious for losing their young people to the opportunities and temptations of big cities, yet here was a town that not only defied the trend but had moved in the opposite direction. The heart of Tolliver was spirited, vibrant, and youth-oriented. The first things that Ben Bowman disliked about Tolliver were that it leaned a little too much toward boutiques and crafts, and had a transitory look about it. The town was too small and too remote to be very successful as a tourist destination, but it had something of that look as well. Bowman was looking for quiet and out of the way. Tolliver's personality was somewhat constrained by its size. It was, after all, a small town and relatively quiet, and it was certainly off the beaten track. But, against the trends that beset small towns, it was growing. He passed 2 new apartment complexes and a small new strip mall on his way in, and a big sign on the 3-story former hotel on the town square announced its conversion into condos. Other buildings appeared to have been newly renovated, or at least cleaned up. He found the pastry shop on the town square and parked in front of it. He noticed people in the verdant square and on the sidewalks, and it suddenly hit him that what Tolliver reminded him of was a small college town, minus the college. The overwhelming number of people were between 18 and 23 could have passed for the student population. At 25 he felt like a post-grad that had hung around hoping for a teaching slot to open up. A pretty red-headed girl was behind the counter, packing up pastries for a waiting couple that couldn't have been over 20. When they left, another couple their age came in. Ben stepped to the counter and asked for Blake Rombert. The redhead turned and shouted over her shoulder, "Blake! A cute guy here to see you." Ben laughed. A curtain parted and a well-built guy came through, a frown on his face. When he saw Ben, the frown changed into a smile. "Hey, buddy, you made it," Blake said. A couple unmarked turns, "But here I am," Ben said. "Good, good. Have you gotten a room yet?" "Just drove in," Ben said. "Where do you recommend?" "Well, I'd like to set you up at my place, but since Lily moved in we're a little cramped," Blake said. "The Meadows is nice and new. You passed it on the way in. You want me to call?" "Sure," Ben said. A room was arranged and Ben agreed to return at 5:15 so Blake could take him around and show him the town. "Not much to see," Blake said, "but you said you were looking for small." "Tolliver's got that, for sure. Some good places to eat, some great bars, and nice shops. There's a creek about 5 miles outside of town. You said you like to fish. Plus, I think we could use a CPA here." "So you said," Ben replied. "I like the idea of my own practice, kinda laid back." "Laid back is our middle name," Blake said. "Not that we don't know how to party. We're real good at that." Ben smiled. "Anybody do any hunting?" "Deer season, but that's about it, if you can call it hunting," Blake said. "Mostly they just start campfires and get drunk." The Meadows was new and fairly nice, with reasonable rates. After he washed up and changed, he had to hurry to get back to the pastry shop on time. Blake was waiting for him out front, talking to 2 other guys. Introductions were made. The new guys made small talk about sports, commenting that Ben looked like he kept in shape and that their softball team could use a big guy for first base. "The guys are always looking for a jock for the team," Blake said as he got behind the wheel of his SUV. "Everybody's into sports, but it's impossible to get those clowns to show up for practice." "I'm in, if I move," Ben said. "What's holding you back?" "Nothing, really. But it's a big change and I want to be sure this is what I want." Blake started the vehicle and began the tour of Tolliver. The main road continued through the town square and out the other side of town. That side had escaped the beautification that the south side was experiencing. "Old people live out here," Blake said. "Our version of the other side of the tracks. Most of them have moved out of town, which is fine with me. I just wanted to show you, to save you the time exploring." The houses were modest clapboard structures, clustered in little groups of 3 or 4, separated by groups of vacant lots. They petered out quickly and Blake made a K-turn in the empty road. "Where do you end up if you keep going?" Ben asked. "Nowhere," Blake said. "Seriously." The road ends at a country road after about 15 miles. One way's forest and the other way leads to Humphrey, which is like Tolliver was 5 years ago, dying. "All the young people moving away?" "Moved," Blake said, finishing the turnaround and heading back to Tolliver. "There was some mining off to the left, past the forest, but that played out way before I got here. A little farming, mostly vegetables and soybeans. The thing I don't understand is why there are so many college-aged people in Tolliver," Ben said. "Like I told you when I met you in that bar, it just sort of happened. Some came and they sort of attracted others and pretty soon we were voting out the old fogies and we took over. Now we run it for us." Blake had started a conversation with Ben at a bar in the city, a place that drew a lot of jocks with jobs, as they called themselves. Though it was nominally a sports bar, the crowd was made up almost exclusively of white-collar types just starting their careers. Blake had started talking with another guy about a team and Ben had responded and they'd hit it off. Finding out that Blake was from out of town sort of freed Ben and he said some things about his life that he normally wouldn't have shared. One of them was how he'd like to chuck it all and find a quiet small town where the pressure level was low and he could start his own business. That was when Blake told him about Tolliver. The rest of the tour didn't take long. Almost all the stores closed early, the nicer residential area was very small and consisted mostly of a group of single-family homes and 2 renovated apartment buildings that reminded Ben of student housing, probably because everyone walking around was college age. The shops may have closed early but the bars opened early, and they all seemed to cater to the young crowd. One, called Darts, had a big neon dartboard for its sign, and its parking lot was already full. "There are some apartments available back there," Blake said. "I know, because that's where Lily and I live. You want to stop for a brewski?" "I think I'll pass tonight," Ben said. "Long drive. But I'll take you up on that tomorrow if you and Lily are free." "Sure thing, buddy," Blake said. "No problem. Rest up and tomorrow we'll show you how Tolliver parties." "Cool. Has Tolliver got a gym?" "Nah, not really. There's a fitness club, but it's chicks only." "You work out?" "Yeah." "You look like it," Blake said. "That's too much like manual labor for the guys here." "Well, I've got free weights and a couple benches," Ben said. "I can set them up in a spare bedroom if I get an apartment." "Pump that iron, dude," Blake grinned. Chapter 2. Ben spent the next day driving around on his own. The town intrigued him and he couldn't put his finger on exactly what the attraction was. It made no sense that so many people in a certain age group, a group that was interested in what was hip, should settle in Tolliver. Blake's explanation of its appeal to people in their early 20s was weak. There was really nothing there for them other than a bunch of other people their own age, and they could find that anywhere. How many people could there be like himself, at his age, trying to escape the career-obsessed city life? People his age were starting careers, not avoiding them. Tolliver was too small for a newspaper, even a weekly shopper, and way too small for a radio or TV station or library, so there was no professional source of information on the town. He ended up driving out the main street toward the north side. The older folks should know about Tolliver before the youth invasion happened. A convenience store with gas pumps was the only business, so he pulled in. An elderly woman coming out seemed startled to see him and gave him a disgusted look as she passed by. The clerk must have been 70, as were the 2 men browsing the aisles. All 3 gave him the same mildly disgusted look when they noticed him. He got a beer from the cooler and took it to the counter. "I'm new in town," he told the clerk. "That right?" the man said, disinterested. "Is there anybody around that can tell me a little about the area, about Tolliver?" That caught the man's attention and he loudly announced to the 2 customers, "Man wants to know about Tolliver." "I'll bet he does," one of the older men said, turning away. No one said anything else. Who should I talk to? Ben asked. The clerk shook his head. No suggestions? Ben persisted. Won't do no good, the clerk said. Why not? Why don't you just go back to the other side of town and leave us be, the clerk said. Ben stood looking at him but decided not to push it. As he was leaving, one of the customers called out, Tell him to go talk to Henry, he's the sumbitch that started it all. We don't know that, the clerk said. Ben turned around and walked down an aisle to the speaker. Who's Henry? He asked. I shouldn't have said nothing, the old man said. I don't know why not, the elderly man in the next aisle said. He came around the end of the shelves, holding a 6-pack and 2 bags of potato chips. Nothing illegal in talking. The first man moped. So who's Henry? Ben asked again. A crazy old vagabond, the second man said. A hermit. They say he discovered something. What? Nobody knows. 'Cept maybe the kids. You don't that, Arnold, the clerk said. He turned toward the counter. That's what they say, Arnold said. They don't know, either, the clerk said. Maybe. Maybe not, Arnold said. He turned back to Ben. Go talk to him and find out. I, for one, would like to know what the hell's going on around here. Henry's hardly even been to town, the clerk said. It's just gossip, and people making things up to explain other things. Henry don't know squat. Maybe. Maybe not, Arnold said again. Maybe this new fella here can find out for sure. I sure as hell would like to know. Why? Ben asked. What's the mystery? What's going on? Hell, if I knew I'd tell ya, Arnold said. And you don't know squat, the clerk said. Just like Henry don't know squat. Arnold shrugged and made to pass by Ben, taking his items to the counter. Where do I find this Henry? Ben asked. Arnold looked at the clerk, then to the third old-timer. No one said anything. He's liable to shoot you, the third man said. Henry don't like visitors. Thanks for the warning, Ben said. Now where do I find him? The man hesitated for a moment before replying. Keep going. There's a dirt road about 4 miles up. Goes through the woods. When it comes out the other side, go about 4 or 5 miles. 6 at least, Arnold interrupted. Go about 4 or 5 miles, the man repeated firmly. Watch for another dirt road to your left. It's easy to miss because no one ever uses it. Just keep going until you see a shack. Only one out there. That's Henry's. Thanks, Ben said. Should I tell him you sent me? The man chuckled. Better not. In fact, you didn't stop here, Arnold said. You never saw us, and you never talked to us. Got it, Ben said. He bought a cold 6-pack of the same brand Arnold carried, a couple bags of snacks, and a bag of coffee. The road was a challenge. The first part, through the hilly forest, was so untraveled that 10-inch saplings were growing down the center. The turnoff was worse. It was covered in short weeds and was almost indistinguishable from the surrounding field. When Ben finally came to the dwelling, he decided that the term the old fellow had used, shack, was perfect. It was 20 by 20 and appeared to be just one room. Ben honked his horn as soon as he saw it, and honked a number of times before he pulled up in front of the crude wood structure. He waited in the car, honking a few more times, figuring it was wise not to surprise a man who was reputed to likely shoot him. When no one appeared, he got out of the car, carrying the beer, coffee, and snacks. He knocked on the door and got no response. He waited, decided to walk around the building. Henry appeared to be self-sufficient. The area behind the house was divided into 3 sections. A large pen held 2 goats, another elaborately fenced area kept critters out of a vegetable garden, and an area off to the side held an outhouse with its door wide open. He went back to the front door, where he knocked again. Getting no response, he put the items down and returned to his car. He waited a few more minutes before leaving. Chapter 3. I talked to a few of my friends and they want to meet you, Blake said. They said they could use a bookkeeper around here. Ben had grabbed a double burger, fries and giant Coke at a mom and pop, or, more accurately, a Broansis drive-thru, checked out a few stores on the town square, and stopped in at Blake's pastry shop. Mostly I think they want a good first baseman, though, Blake said with a laugh. I'm up for that, too, if I stay, Ben said. You don't like Tolliver? Blake asked, concerned. I do, Ben said. It's perfect. But I have the odd sense that I'm missing something. Like what? I don't know, Ben said. He was tempted to ask about the college town atmosphere in a town that didn't have a college or, as far as he could tell, a school of any kind. But he believed he'd just get the same answer from Blake. Some kids came and they attracted other kids. He kept his knowledge of Henry to himself, both because the old-timers at the convenience store asked him to keep quiet, and because he anticipated that Blake would pooh-bah Henry's supposed knowledge. Why don't you come back after we close, like last night, and I'll take you home and you can have dinner with Lily and me, and then we'll hit a few clubs. Tolliver's pretty lively at night, Blake said. I know you said you wanted a quiet place, but here you can have quiet with an option to party if you want. Sounds good, Ben said. I'll see you then. He felt foolish doing it, but he headed south, toward his motel, and when he was out of sight of the pastry shop he turned right, then right again, and took a road parallel to the main drag. The road petered out after a dozen blocks and Ben took a right and left, bringing him back to the main through road. No big deal, but he didn't want Blake to see him heading north. He drove to the same convenience store and the same clerk was there. Ben picked up a box of salt and a bag of sugar and took them to the counter. As he was checking out, an elderly lady came in, paused when she saw him, then headed to the rear of the store. Talk to Henry? The clerk asked as he rang up the purchases. Nobody home, Ben said. The clerk nodded. He bagged the items and said, bribe? Ben laughed. I suppose you could call it that. Probably more stuff than Henry's seen in a while, the clerk said. What can you tell me about him? Ben asked. The man seemed to think about it for a minute. He's not from around here, he said. Moved here probably 25 years or so, and I don't know where he come from. Built his shack himself, hunts for the pot. Tried some mining in the creek but there's nothing there. I heard he sleeps under trees if he's wandered too far by nightfall, but I don't know that for sure. Just hearsay. Ben waited for more but the clerk just looked at him. Ben paid, and asked, no visitors? Wouldn't really know, the clerk said. Out in the boonies like that, anybody could come and go, and who's to know? Ben nodded. The other gentleman said the rumor was that Henry had found something. Ah, he don't know squat, the clerk said. You know how people are. When they don't know something they make up stories that sound interesting. Some people call that gossip. Some call it bullshit. By the way he said it, there was no doubt what he called it. The woman came to the counter with a couple items, standing off to the side as if she didn't want to get too close to Ben. Well, thanks, Ben said. He drove out to the shack again, honking all the way. Henry hadn't returned and his initial gifts were still by the front door. Ben added the salt and sugar. He sat in his car for half an hour, honked a few more times, and then backed onto the path that passed for a road. A man stepped out from some bushes 40 feet behind him and walked toward the car. He was carrying a rifle across his chest and wore a pistol in a western holster on his hip. Ben cut the engine and waited, watching the man in his side mirror. Hello, Henry, he thought. The old hermit moved slowly but with confidence, coming up to the side of the car. What do you want? If you're Henry, the first want to talk to you for a minute, Ben said. I'm new in town and I'm trying to learn about the area. At the phrase new in town, Henry raised his rifle. Don't go to town, Henry said. Who sent you? Nobody, Ben said. He knew this would be the difficult part, trying to win the man's confidence by starting off with a weak lie. I just heard about you and thought you'd be interesting to talk to. You figure me to buy that? He spit. Ben smiled. It's pretty much true. What part ain't? It's true, but it's not everything, Ben said. I'm really trying to figure out something that doesn't make sense. I thought you might know the answer. What would that be? Mind if I get out of the car? Ben asked. Henry stepped back, his rifle now pointing directly at Ben. Come ahead, Henry said. Slow. Ben did. He had 4 or 5 inches on the man, and was at least 40 years younger, but made sure to move in a way that was non-threatening. You seem a little defensive, Ben said. Got my reasons, Henry said. Okay. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions? Try one, Henry said. It's difficult to put it into words, but, like I said, I'm new to Tolliver. I may move here, but there's something. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but something seems wrong about the place. The grizzly old man smiled. Do tell. What is it? You tell me, Henry said. That's it, I don't know, Ben said. It's nice enough, but it's strange for a small town in the middle of nowhere to have so many young people. Lots of pretty girls, the man said. There are, Ben agreed. And college guys, but no college. The old man nodded. I suppose it could happen, but it doesn't feel right, Ben said. Henry nodded again. And I just realized this, Ben said, but I don't think I've seen anyone that's tall. You're tall, Henry said. Usually, he said, thinking out loud as much as talking to the hermit, in a bunch of guys there's somebody else 6'2", maybe somebody taller, but I think every guy I've seen is like 5'9", 5'8", and I've seen a lot of guys walking around. Of course they're all a little younger, but I've seen some short guys, but no tall guys. How about that? Henry said, mockery in his voice. What do you mean? The man stared at Ben for a moment. Best get back in your car. A stranger could get shot out here. Best don't come back. Just tell me what you know, Ben said. I don't want no trouble, Henry said. I wouldn't tell a soul, Ben said. Henry spit. Best get out of here right now. And don't come back. Ben wanted to push it, but the man sounded more irritated with every sentence. I'm good at keeping a secret, Ben said, turning away and opening his car door. So am I, Henry said. Chapter 4. Lily was a vivacious little blonde with a winning smile. She thanked Ben for the bottle of wine he'd brought and took it away. Blake and Ben sat in the living room, and after a minute Lily joined them. Lily was a town booster, making Tolliver sound like everything anyone could want. She stressed the fun people, the fact that people in their age group filled the few elective offices and made or discarded rules to fit their lifestyles, and the reasonable cost of living. You really should move, she said. You'll love it. Dinner was simple, but Lily was a good cook and it was delicious. The guys cleaned up while she went to change clothes. Tolliver was a party town. It may have been small, but it seemed that every resident minus the old folks north of town was out at night, walking the streets, cruising the town square in cars, or hitting the many clubs on the side streets off the square. Blake gave him a rundown of bars within walking distance. Rock, country, blues, folk, more rock. Even got a jazz club, if you like that, but it's not exactly party central. We went once, Lily said. Tolliver's too small to have a drunk driving problem, Blake laughed. We have a drunk walking problem. You can bar hop without a car. Blake and Lily seemed to know everyone, and couple after couple came up, said hello, and introduced themselves to Ben. Now that he was aware of it and had formed his unconscious impression into words, he saw that he'd been right about there being no tall people in Tolliver. It wasn't Lilliput, but he could look out over a big group of dancers and be aware that that's what he was doing, looking out over them. The difference wasn't so huge that he felt self-conscious, but it was noticeable once you realized it was there. Blake and Lily kept him busy, and he caught on that they were introducing him to a nice mix of attractive single girls from among their wide circle of friends. He danced with at least half a dozen during the evening, and hit it off especially well with an athletically built brunette with a ready laugh. It was the combination of people watching and the fit brunette that brought another observation to him. There weren't many jocks in Tolliver. Ben had always worked out with free weights and machines, though never taking it to extremes. But the guys in Tolliver, with few exceptions, didn't seem athletic. It wasn't that they were soft or flabby, just that the certain normal percentage of college-aged guys that were jocks was missing. Tolliverians weren't bookish looking either. It wasn't so much a nerd crowd, though that group was represented, as it was a group of average guys in unusual numbers. The girls were probably in better shape, as a group, and Ben figured the fitness center that Blake had mentioned could account for that. "Don't let all the partying overwhelm you," Lily said at one point, smiling brightly. "Blake said you liked it quiet, and there's no law that says you have to hit the clubs every night." "I'll propose one at the next town meeting," Blake joked. "I don't go overboard on the quiet," Ben said. "What I was really talking about was a less stressful place. I like to party. I just want to get away from the pressure of the city and the job." "Amen," Blake said. "There's always so many people coming at you in the city," Ben said. "Dinners with people just because they might be able to advance your career. You know how it is. And everybody's wired to the next big thing, or a great investment opportunity, or something. A guy in my office sells hot luxury cars. At least I think they're hot, they're very cheap. It never stops." "I know exactly what you mean," Lily said. "I like money as much of the next guy," Ben said, "but I can't picture myself cooking the books for some big corporation for the rest of my life. There are other things. Like having a good time," Blade said. He raised his glass and they toasted. Chapter 5. The grand tour of Tolliver's nightlife almost made Ben decide not to move there. It had been fun, but also a bit, well, juvenile. Some of the people he'd met were his age, the earliest members of Tolliver's youth invasion, but most were 4 or 5 years younger, and they made him feel old. Maybe not old as much as mature. Mature wasn't a feeling he'd had on the job, where everyone was older than he was, but just a few years of difference between him and the typical Tolliverian made him aware of it. He liked to party, but partying was a weekend release. In Tolliver, dancing, drinking, talking, and listening to music seemed to be the center of life. It was college without the classes. Although Blake and Lily had introduced him to a few married couples during their night of bar hopping, the overwhelming majority of people were single. That wasn't bad, because having such a large number of attractive girls to date was hugely appealing. But he wondered about the stability of a town with such a preponderance of young singles. Still, no place was perfect, and Tolliver certainly had a lot going for it. Being populated by 18 to 25-year-olds gave it vitality, mixed with an easygoing atmosphere. And although it may not have been a strictly honorable thought, the fact that everyone was young made it more attractive. Not just attractive in the sense that you want to go there, but actually physically more attractive. Everyone was healthy, vivacious, and reasonably to very good-looking, not a wrinkle, bald head, pot belly or limp to be seen anywhere, as long as he didn't go north of town. Other places, large or small, were homes to a jumble of groups divided by economics, race, age, ethnicity, education, and a million other things. Tolliver was homogeneous. All the stores were for his age group. He could immediately relate to all the shop owners and employees, and all the service businesses catered to a single age group. Even the informal local government was composed of people like him. Hell, if he got stopped for speeding in Tolliver, the cop would be 20 years old and understand an occasional, youthful heavy foot. But it was still weird. There were discrepancies in the facade, starting with the reasons given for Tolliver's very existence. He knew why he was tempted to move here, but that didn't explain why everyone else was there. Well, it did, but he found the explanation less than totally satisfying. He had found out about Tolliver in a casual bar conversation with a stranger. That wasn't the kind of thing that could populate a town, even a very small town. True, some kids no doubt found out and told their friends, but how many friends would they have to tell in order to find enough to fill Tolliver? How many friends would say, "Cool. A dinky town in the middle of nowhere. Just what I was looking for." Not many. Making a mental list of pluses and minuses produced a clear picture. Tolliver, despite its few odd quirks, would be a nice place to live. Fan-fucking-tastic, Blake said. I knew you'd like it, and you're going to fit right in. When are you moving? I'd like to see if there are any storefronts available, Ben said. Find an apartment, and I want to give the firm 2 weeks' notice. Sure, Blake said. Anything I can do to help? I know some guys with pickups that can help you move. We don't have a truck rental place in town. You may have to buy them a cold brewski and get their gas, but they do it as a favor to me. Thanks. I'll give you a call. And Lauren's our local real estate girl, Blake said. Come on, I'll introduce you. I know there's a little office just around the corner that's empty. Lauren turned out to be about 19, and her pretty blonde receptionist/secretary wasn't a day older. Both were dressed in jeans, polo shirt and sneakers, and knew every building in Tolliver. Lauren showed Ben 5 different possibilities, all on side streets off the town square, and all within walking distance of each other. The next step was to find an apartment, and that turned out to be just as easy. Blake knew that his complex had at least one 2-bedroom available, and Ben rode with him to the leasing office. The manager, an ancient 24, showed Ben upstairs and downstairs units. Ben chose the latter, simply because it would be easier moving his stuff in. Chapter 6. It wasn't buyer's remorse so much as it was the natural nervousness associated with a major life move. He'd signed a lease for the cheapest of the offerings Lauren showed him, expressed his appreciation when she offered to take care of the paperwork for the occupational license, get the utilities going, and check on renting the minimum of office furniture. Giving 2 weeks' notice had been a deep breath-in-charge experience. The CPA firm was uncomfortable with him leaving current accounts, and he could tell that no one believed his story of wanting to get away from the rat race and settle in a little town. Packing was a chore, but because he'd be doing the moving himself and not hiring a company, he didn't bother with double boxing. The roads for the second half of the trip were rough, 2-lane country tarmac, but as long as they avoided the potholes it wouldn't be a problem. The they was Ben and the 2 guys that Blake had talked into helping him. Each had a pickup, but because of Ben's furniture they had to make the 5-hour round trip twice. He took care of gas, food, and gave each enough cash to make it worth their while. Loading and unloading, twice, and 10 hours on the road made for a long, grueling day, and Ben showered, stretched out on his mattress, the frame still not put together, and slept. His first week as a resident of Tolliver was exhausting. Setting up both the apartment and his new office took an amazing amount of time. Forgotten details popped up constantly and everything required his attention. Blake and Lily had him over for dinner twice, and he found a good restaurant a block from the office. Blake brought guys by twice a day to introduce Ben to them. Ben felt as if he was auditioning, which, in a sense, he was, because they were all potential clients for his new bookkeeping business. Being judged so often took its own toll, though Blake always assured him later that the guys had liked him. If they turned into clients it would be worth it. It wasn't until his 10th day in town that he decided he needed a break. He drove north and stopped at the convenience store. There was a woman in her 60s behind the counter, and when he asked about the regular clerk she curtly told him it was the man's day off. He bought canned goods but didn't bother with the beer. The last time it had sat most of the day outside Henry's door, getting warm. He went through his honking approach again, and this time Henry was home and came outside. Told you not to come back, the old man said. I moved to Tolliver, Ben said, handing him the bag of groceries. Henry took the bag without looking inside. He shook his head. Why don't young people ever listen? Did you listen when you were young? Henry stopped. He thought. He smiled slightly. Hell, no, he said. Henry took the bag inside and Ben followed. The hermit headed to a chair, and Ben quickly glanced around. There wasn't much to see: some crude, handmade furniture, a torn and ragged old store-bought couch, a manufactured coffee table with half of one leg missing, kept stable by a stick and duct tape. A countertop, cracked and probably salvaged from the trash somewhere, was supported by boxes. There was an assortment of mismatched plates, glasses, flatware, bowls, and pitchers. Henry put the bag by the chair and sat down, pointing to the couch. Ben sat. I appreciate you taking the time, he said. You've been decent to me, Henry said. You don't listen to me, of course. The small smile appeared again. And I know you're going to get me in a lot of trouble. But it's only right I should invite you in. Ben thanked him. I don't mean to get you into any trouble. Nobody ever does, the man said. You come back about the same thing, I figure. Yes, Ben said. Henry chewed on non-existent cud. Ben waited. When you first come, Henry said. I thought the boys from town sent you. They check up on me from time to time. Ben encouraged. I had this goat, see, Henry said. Named him Billy. Everybody does. Have a pen out back. Made a leash and took old Billy for walks. He wasn't much of a walker, but he was company. They both heard the SUV pull up. They looked at each other, and Henry's eyebrows went up and down, and he sighed. Come on in, he said in answer to the knock on the door. Chapter 7. He's harmless most of the time, Blake said. The two of them were in Ben's new office, sharing lunch. Lily had brought it by, with enough extra for Ben, and left with a smile. She gets on a health food thing every now and then, Blake explained, so I eat a lot of salads and drink a lot of water for a week or two, and then she gets bored with it and I can go back to normal food. It tastes pretty good, actually. Try it. Ben had, and it was good. He watched what he ate because he believed in taking care of his body, and was used to salads, spring water, and organic foods. He seems like a nice old guy, Ben said. Most of the time, Blake repeated. But sometimes he starts taking shots at people, like he owned that land or something. He thinks the whole forest and all the scrubland are his. He put one guy in the hospital, shot him in the leg. Henry? He struck me as more bluster than business, Ben said. Oh, no, he'll use that rifle of his if he feels like it. He's taken shots at lots of people. He's got a history. We know he shot at a couple back when Tolliver was a sleepy little town like all the others. You haven't met them, but Marty and Chelsea grew a little pot out in the forest and he shot at them twice. Shot a knapsack. They were wearing it? No, it was on the ground, but still, he's a little crazy. And he did shoot that guy in the leg. He's not harmless, for sure. Blake turned to his food, and Ben followed suit. Carl and Jimmy went a little overboard ordering you back to town, Blake said. They're still learning the job. Carl's only been chief of police for a few months. It was none of his business if I wanted to talk to Henry or not, Ben said. You're right, Blake said. Ben took a drink of the crystal clear spring water. Lily had brought a large bottle and 2 glasses and swore it was untouched by processing plants or commercial machinery. Blake had laughed, and she'd punched him good-naturedly on the shoulder. He was telling me some interesting things, Ben said. Oh, yeah? Like what? He said he had this billy goat. Oh, hell, that old story. That is just so much bullshit. He's a crazy old man. You've heard the story? Ben said, bluffing his way. Sure, Blake said, but didn't add anything else. You don't believe it? Did it sound realistic to you? All Ben could do was shrug. Maybe one of the old-timers at the convenience store could fill him in. Listen, why don't you come over and we'll go out for dinner, not this stuff, and catch some music? This is really pretty good, Ben said, and I'm not just saying that to be polite. He figured Blake was more of a meat and potatoes guy. I'm pretty beat, though. I need to call it an early night. Dinner, Blake said. As a favor to me. Ben looked at him. Blake shrugged. It's a setup. Lily invited one of her girlfriends over and she thinks you two will hit it off. You met her, if you remember, at Callow's. Nice-looking brunette, runs the classes at the fitness center. No obligation, man. Eat and run, if you like, but I sort of promised Lily I'd talk you into dinner. I do remember her, Ben said. Dinner's fine, and we can go out for a drink afterward, but I've still got to call it an early night. Not a problem, Blake said. Listen, I'm going to take mine back to the shop, he added, picking up his plate and glass. Don't worry about this, he motioned to Ben's plate and glass, the bowl of salad and jug of water. You can drop the plate and stuff off tomorrow. I'll bring it tonight, Ben said. Good enough, Blake said. The dinner went well. Barbara was indeed the girl he remembered from his first night on the town with Blake and Lily, and they did hit it off. It helped that she was so upfront and funny about the dinner being a setup. They caught a drink at the jazz club, the only night spot in town that wasn't packed. Lily insisted they return to the apartment for a nightcap, after that Ben can get his beauty sleep. Ben shifted, turning off his stomach and more onto his side so he wouldn't crush his breast. Breast? Was that right? He shifted again, trying to come awake enough to be able to pay attention. Forget it. He went back to sleep. How are you doing, buddy? He heard that. A hand shook his shoulder. Come on. Time to wake up. Darn if that voice wasn't familiar. Up and at 'em. You slept all night. A hand shook his shoulder again. Hey, wake up, Ben. The voice was talking to him. I know you're groggy, but you have to try to sit up. Open your eyes. He opened his eyes. There was Blake, his face close, grinning like crazy. There you are, Blake said. I've got some things to tell you, but you've got to wake up. You're going to be groggy and sore for a while, but try your best. Do you understand what I'm saying, Blake? Ben mumbled. Very good. That's our girl, Blake said, laughing. I'm going to help you sit up. Work with me. Ben felt an arm around his waist. He was lifted a few inches and the arm slid higher, closer to his shoulders. Work with me, Blake said. He grunted and Ben felt himself lifted to a sitting position. There was a flurry of movement as Blake tried to hold Ben up and stuff pillows behind him at the same time. Victory, Blake said. Now we've got to get you to talk. How do you feel? Sore, Ben said. Sleepy. Can't think. Not a problem, Blake said. That's the way it works. Now listen to me carefully. You're going to be groggy for a couple, 3 weeks. Groggy and very sore and confused. But everything's okay. Remember that everything's okay. Got it? Sure, Ben said. Very sore. I know, Blake said, but you've slept a long time so you don't need any more sleep. You should try to wake up. Ben nodded. Okay, Blake said. Now, I'm going to call you Erica instead of Ben, okay? Why? It works better, okay? Trust me, Blake said. Ben closed his eyes. No, Blake said, shaking Ben's shoulder. Stay awake. Okay. Good. You've been through something kind of wild and it's going to take a good while to recover. There's nothing to be afraid of. Everything's fine. It's just going to take some time. Understand so far? Hurt? Accident? Ben felt his body starting to wake up. No, Nothing like that, Blake said. Just something you ate. He smiled. But it will take a while to recover fully, that's all. You remember I gave you a new name? You remember what it was? Ben thought for a minute, but nothing came to mind. Erica, Blake said. Remember now? I remember now, Ben repeated. Good. I've got some things to tell you, but they're kind of complicated, so we'll wait a few days, okay? Okay. Lily's at the shop today, so I can watch over you and make sure everything is all right, Blake said. Scott and Chris are. Do you remember them? Move, Ben said. Very good. They helped you move, Blake said. They came by a while ago and they're very happy with how you turned out. Ben didn't understand that. Anyway, Blake said, this thing works at its own speed and we're just here to make it easier for you. Lily and I, and Barbara and the guys, will all be looking out for you, so you don't have anything to worry about. Business? My business, Ben said. Apartment. Exactly what I mean, Blake said. We've got you a couple clients and they're happy to wait until you've fully recovered and can hit the ground running. And don't worry about the apartment. I'll pay the rent for you next month and you can stay here for as long as you need to. We're all set up for this. Thank you, Ben said. Not a problem, buddy, Blake said. You've been asleep for a long time. I'll bet you're hungry. Ben hadn't realized it, but it was true. Starving, he said. That made Blake laugh. I'll bet you are. Lily made some soup for you. Health soup, like lunch yesterday. You remember that? Yes. Good salad. Oh, yeah. And some fresh spring water to go with it. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Okay. He moved to more substantial food the next day, but he was still groggy and still wanted to sleep a lot. Lily helped him to the bathroom. Down there he had a small nub and 2 bumps like marbles. She helped him sit and he knew he'd never had to sit down to do that before. That was interesting. Barbara came to see him and seemed very happy that he recognized her. She kissed him on the cheek and patted his arm. Some of the guys came by. He thought he recognized a couple as people Blake had brought into his new office for introductions. They did a lot of grinning but didn't really say much, other than wishing him a speedy recovery. On the 6th day he could walk around his room, though either Blake or Lily held his arm in case he lost his balance. He had an understanding that his body had changed. Certainly it was a lot smaller than before, but his mind was still too clouded for him to question how or why. His memory was slowly returning. He remembered the city, the job at the accounting firm, the move to Tolliver, and meeting a lot of new people. But he had no memory of the accident. He asked Blake about that, and when Blake told him it was something he'd eaten, Ben remembered that Blake had told him that before. So that was the correct answer. It was something that he'd eaten. At the end of the 2nd week, instead of a clean nightgown, Lily brought him a bra and panties. She helped him with the bra because he was awkward and still sore. Putting his hands behind him was difficult. She also brought a skirt, blouse, and a pair of flats. He walked around the apartment with her help. Later, he sat in the living room and watched TV with her. They had a satellite dish, so there were a lot of channels from which to choose. He couldn't make up his mind about what he wanted to see, so he let Lily choose for them. He fell asleep during a program. During the 3rd week it felt that something wasn't right. What kind of accident could make him shrink so much, and how come he had breasts, and why was the thing between his legs just a nub? He wasn't distressed about those questions. He just felt he should know the answer. Remember I told you it was something you ate? Blake said. Sure, I remember. Well, that was true, Blake said. Something you ate, combined with something you drank. Oh, it was a combination thing, Ben thought. Lily's lunch? Yep. But you ate but didn't drink. It takes both, Blake said. You remember Henry? Sure. Well, Henry found a little spring out there in the boonies. Not even fair to call it a spring. Just a little water leaking out of the ground and making a small wet circle maybe an inch deep. The water seemed okay, clear and no smell, but he had his goat try it first. He told me about the goat. He named it Billy, Ben said. Right. What else did he tell you about the goat? Nothing, Ben said. Really? I thought he'd told you more. That's why we hurried this. Nope. Not a thing, Ben said. Well, Blake said. Huh. Well, no harm done. What difference does it make if we did it now or a month from now? I don't know, Ben said. Blake smiled. Of course you don't. So let's get on with the story, okay? Henry sees that his billy goat is fine, so he drinks the water, too. Later, he takes the goat back to its pen and he goes inside. The next morning he comes out and the goat is lying on the ground. He thinks it's dead, but when he gets closer he sees it's different. Smaller, and like that. He figures somebody swapped his goat for a nanny goat, which he didn't mind owning because he could get goat's milk. But he was pissed that they'd done it, and pissed that they left a dead goat in his pen. He got pretty riled up. Sure, Ben said. So he grabs his gun and starts off through the woods. And he runs into Marty and Chelsea, out checking their little pot garden. He shoots their knapsack, scares the shit out of them, and marches them back to his shack. Henry told you this? Or just Marty and Chelsea? Well, listen to you. Getting the old brain back, aren't you? Blake said. No, Marty and Chelsea told me, but Henry confirmed it. See, when they got back to Henry's shack the goat was standing up, not dead at all. But not Billy either. Of course Marty and Chelsea didn't know a thing about it, and they finally convinced Henry. He made them show him where their vehicle was and he looked inside, even checked for goat hairs, before he believed them. So now Marty and Chelsea come back and tell me their story. They came to Tolliver because they wanted a remote place to grow pot, and we became friends. I was a little younger, but I was about the only one in town at that time that was near their age. We used to smoke together. We tried to find out who switched Henry's goat but never got a clue. That's when Henry got a second goat. Was it okay, or did the same thing happen? Same thing happened, Blake said. One day Henry took it out and stopped at the little spring, and the next morning the billy goat was a nanny goat. How? You said Henry drank the water, too, and he didn't change. You're right, Blake said. That had us going for a long time, until Chelsea said it must either be the way a goat digests. A biology major told us goats have 4 stomachs, or maybe the water worked in combination with something else that goats eat but Henry doesn't eat. Which one was it? Ben asked. The combo. A weed grass that grows out there. It flowers, Blake said. We did a lot of experiments and that was it. So what did you do? Blake's story was awful long and Ben knew he wouldn't remember it all, but it was so interesting he wanted more. We fixed some soup and water for the sheriff, Blake said. The sheriff? He was a real son of a bitch, Blake said. Hated young people. He was always trying to follow Marty and Chelsea because he knew they had pot plants somewhere. And you turned him into a goat? Blake laughed. No. He turned into a middle-aged woman. About drove him nuts. Drove him out of Jackson County, which is what we wanted anyway. Wow, Ben said. You should bottle that. I can set up a corporation for you. We thought about it, Blake said. Then I came up with the idea of using it in a different way. How? Blake shook his head and smiled. Maybe I should have waited to tell you this story. You're still pretty groggy. I know, Ben admitted. He'd only been up a short time but he was already tired. How did you decide to use the water, though? Part 2 tomorrow, Blake said. Chapter 8 I figured it out, Ben said when Blake came into his room the next day. You did? Blake said. You changed people that came to Tolliver. That's why everyone's so young. Close, but not quite, Blake said. We changed a couple kids, hitchhikers, but they weren't enough. It doesn't change age, just sex. We wanted to take over the town and it was cool to have more girls around. So I went to the city and got some guys to come out here. Everybody 18 to 20. It worked, but then we had too many girls. Then do it to some girls, Ben said. We tried that, too. It doesn't work that way. They just get really sore, like they had the flu or something. Why doesn't it work? Shit, how the hell do I know? We don't even know why it does work the way it does. It changes the body, but not 100%, as you see when you pull down your panties. But 99.5 will do. I guess, Ben said. And it changed parts of the mind, the parts that have to do with gender, at least that's what it looks like, but not the entire mind, even though the mind is just a physical organ, so it should all change, too. We haven't figured that out either. One of the guys thinks it has something to do with the flower, which might have a sort of gender. Anyway, it fucks you up good for a while, makes you dumb and all, but that goes away. We figure that's because it's making changes to the brain during that period, but we don't really know. It doesn't seem to mess with memories or intelligence and things like that. Personality. That's very strange, Ben said. It's also not a very nice thing to do. Everybody seems pretty happy with it, Blake said. I can't say I like the way the city council's going now, but by and large we're doing fine. Just look at the place. You said you were on the council, Ben said. It's sort of gotten away from us, Blake admitted. Lots of new people got voted on. What are they doing? Not important, Blake said. How are you doing today? Okay, I think, Ben said. I'm remembering more. I have a little more strength. I'm still sore all over. I don't care for being small. I sleep a lot. All good, my friend, Blake said. I do have a question, Ben said. Shoot. Why me? Blake said. Lots of reasons. You were ready to get away from the city. Single. You have a skill that we need here in Tolliver. Accountancy. Right, Blake said. He hesitated before adding, and there's the city council. I don't understand. Why should you? I told you it got away from us. Yes. Well, some of the new guys think they're funny. What we do, see, is take turns as recruiters. It was my turn. We were getting guys who dropped out of college but had belonged to a fraternity. I thought that worked really well, but a few months ago the council passed a regulation. Recruiters are supposed to find big guys, jocks. Why? They think it's funny, Blake said, embarrassed. You know, to turn jocks into girls. Why? Ben asked, confused. Yeah, why? I don't get it either, but they think it's hilarious, Blake said. Hell, we've got our own playground here, why do they want to get goofy with it? Ben felt there was something wrong with that, and then it came to him. How come I'm so small? I was pretty big. Well, you're not exactly, Blake said. The way this thing works is the girls turn out in a range of heights, depending on how tall they were when, well, you know. When they were guys, Ben said. Blake shrugged. Yeah. So you were, what? 6'2"? You're probably about 5'8". Lily was 5'9", so now she's 5'3". It's a range. Lily? She used to be a guy? Sure. Barbara, too. All the girls in town. That's... He couldn't find the words. Yeah, Blake said. Well, look, this is too much for you to digest right now. Just take it easy and you'll kind of cruise right into this. I don't think so, Ben said. Blake smiled. Trust me. Chapter 9. How long am I going to be a girl? Ben asked. The three of them, Blake, Lily and Ben, were watching TV and a commercial break had just started. You are what you are, Blake said. You'll get used to it. Forever? Ben asked. Blake shrugged. You'll really like it, Erica Lily said. All us girls do. I'm not so sure, Ben said. I know, Lily said. Give it time. There's always a period of adjustment. How long? A couple more weeks, Lily said. Lily will show you some of the things you'll need to know, Blake said. Ben nodded. They watched a couple commercials, but when the program came back on he said, I don't like not catching on to things. Lily smiled. Don't worry about that either. It all comes back to you. A little more every day. Isn't that what you've experienced so far? Ben thought. I think so. Sure, Blake said. And you're really hot looking, so you should be happy about that. Lily hit him on the arm. Blake. Blake laughed. Ben smiled. They were a cute couple. I can still be an accountant, right? Ben asked. No problem, Blake said. I wouldn't want you to keep my books during the next few weeks, but when you get back up to speed you'll be as good as you ever were. I'll just be a girl, Ben said. You got it. Listen, you'll be fine. One thing, Ben said. Go ahead, Erica, Lily encouraged. Why? I don't understand that, Ben said. Why what, hon? Lily asked. Why do you change guys into girls? Blake laughed. To get more girls, he said. Come on, Erica. How many hot young girls would come to Tolliver on their own? I don't know. Roughly 0, Blake said. Then why don't you go where they are? We've got it made here, he said. We run the town. Everything's for us. It's like spring break every day. Nobody hassles us. We're the kings and queens of Tolliver. If you want to grow a little pot in your backyard, fine. If we want the bars to stay open until 5 a.m., fine. The only time I ever see a tie in town is if somebody's getting married. The mayor wears jeans to work. Whatever. But if everybody parties, Ben said, but had trouble putting together the rest of the thought. Then how does anything get done? Lily asked. Ben brightened. That was it. We're pretty responsible, Lily said. We may show up in jeans, but we work hard. Some of us have little businesses, some do crafts. Older people think we're irresponsible, but we're not. It's just that in Tolliver you don't have the hassles. I mean, if somebody wanted to run through the town square naked, they'd probably get applauded, not clubbed and dragged off to jail. In fact, Lily will do it tomorrow, just to show you, Blake said. In your dreams? She laughed. Ben laughed with them. Chapter 10. Ben got to know Blake and Lily's friends better over the following weeks, and they started going out to dinner and stopping for a few drinks, always as a threesome. Ben didn't think of himself as Ben anymore. He knew he had been Ben, and now she was Erica, and that was fine. Sometimes it was even difficult to imagine he'd ever been a guy. A guy? How weird was that? More and more memories of her previous life came back to her, but they frankly weren't all that interesting. She came to realize that she'd lived a commonplace life, dull and without surprises. Her life as Erica had more to it. Part of her enjoyment came in learning the new things that Lily taught her. Makeup was creative and fun. Clothing was even more fun, and, though with part of her mind she realized that it shouldn't really have surprised her, she was amazed to learn that she could create a myriad of reactions simply by choosing different underwear and outerwear. If she wore frumpy clothes and no makeup, guys tended to place more value on what she said. A very thin bra and top that showed her nipples, coupled with a short skirt or skin-tight jeans, directed guys' minds to her body and away from her brain. That was fun. The only part of her new life as Erica that created apprehension was the idea of relationships. Even worse was the knowledge that the population was slightly uneven, with a few more girls than guys. She'd have to compete, but she didn't even know how to conduct a relationship from a girl's point of view. Lily gave advice and examples, but Erica felt the topic was more of a you had to be there sort of thing. During the 6th week after being born again, she reopened her office. Someone had kept it dusted, and it was just like it was the day she'd had the special meal with the special water. Thinking of that made her think of Henry. What would he say if she showed up at his shack? Blake said that Henry seemed to have figured out what they were doing with the flowers and the spring water, though nothing was ever said outright. The guys from town that bottled the water and picked the flowers told Henry a story about an experiment at school, but they didn't think he'd believe them, knowing what had happened to his goat. Mostly he just shook his head and left them alone, and they left him alone. Erica's car battery had died and she'd had it jumped so she could go back and forth to her office. Both Lily and Blake thought she was ready to move back into her new apartment, and she did so. She had dinner with them each night and went to a club one night. A couple guys had asked her to dance, but she'd passed. Tolliver was set up for situations like hers, and her bank account had already been switched to her new name. She found it funny that she had to sign a new account card because her signature had changed. On the second day in her office, the 20-year-old mayor stopped by to welcome her back. The next morning, the guy who owned the computer store came by and she arranged to do his store's books, as well as set up some simple household bookkeeping for his wife and himself. He was 19. In the afternoon, the girl who ran the auto repair shop stopped by. She and Erica traded girl talk for a while, ended up going for coffee, and Erica added a second business to her bookkeeping portfolio. On the third morning, a guy who owned what he called a landscaping business but was really primarily a lawn mowing service talked to her about setting up his books. Business was growing and he'd been operating off of saved receipts. The wife of a guy who worked at Tolliver's bank was selling her homemade pottery on the side, but was gaining a following and thought she should make her business official. Erica added another client. All her clients were within walking distance, though the landscaping company garage was a healthy walk, and she spent a lot of time in their offices, gathering unorganized print data and copying what few computer files they already used. During a Friday lunch at the natural food store on the town square, Erica thought about Henry again. She'd been so busy, both day and night, that he hadn't crossed her mind. On the spur of the moment, she decided to visit him. It was only on the way there that she realized that not only wouldn't he recognize her, but that he was armed and apparently not afraid to use his weapons. She stopped at the convenience store and picked up a bag of flour, some salt and some sugar. The same old man was at the counter, but he gave her impatience and she didn't talk to him. Outside, an elderly woman was filling her pickup with gas, and Erica caught her staring hard. When their eyes met, the woman curled her mouth in anger and turned back to the gas pump. She did the horn honking all the way down the road and in front of the shack. No one responded, and after a few minutes she got out, took the bag of groceries to the door, and put them down. She knocked, not expecting a reply and not getting one. She waited in her car for 30 minutes. Clouds had filled the afternoon sky and the temperature was pleasant. Finally, she started the car and backed out. Henry stepped from behind the same bush he'd hidden behind before. He walked toward her car, his rifle at port arms and his pistol bouncing on his hip in the loose western holster. Erica turned off the engine and waited. "Whata want?" Henry said when he got close enough to be heard. "I thought I'd come and see you again," Erica said. "I brought you another grocery bag." "Not much. Some flour, salt and sugar." "Whata mean by again?" he asked. "Can I get out?" "No need," Henry said. "Start her up and move on out of here." "That's no way to treat an old friend," Erica said. Henry squinted. "Don't talk in riddles to me, young lady," he said. "Spit it out. Do you recognize the car?" "I do." "And the bag left by the door?" Henry's jaw started working, as if he was chewing something. "Get out," he said. Real slow. He pointed the rifle at her. Erica got out and closed the car door behind her. "I think," she started, but Henry quickly held up a hand to stop her, then returned it to the rifle. He stared, his jaw still working steadily. He looked her up and down. He looked at her face and squinted. Gotcha, huh? He said. What do you mean? She asked. My spring, my flowers, he said. Yes, she said. Huh. Erica waited. Henry slowly lowered the weapon. Want a cup of coffee? Maybe this time we won't be interrupted. He turned toward the shack. She was shocked that he wasn't. How could he see her, knowing she used to be the 6 feet 2 inches guy who'd stopped by a couple months ago, and take it so nonchalantly? Henry took the bag inside, put it on the floor by his chair, and sat down. He quickly got back up, waved at the beat-up couch, and said, "Ma'am." Erica sat on the couch, and Henry retook his seat. When she'd first talked to him, Henry had known a lot more than Ben had. That was probably reversed now, but she wasn't sure of that, and wanted him to do the talking. You do remember me? She asked. Of course I do, he said. Not looking like you do, but I remember you. You know you're the only one who ever brought me anything? I'm surprised, she said. Shouldn't be, he said. The kids in town just want the water and the flowers. An old fuddy-duddy like me just gets in their way. You know what they use the water and flowers for? Erica asked. You, he said, waving a hand at her. That's right. How long have you known? They figured since I was old I was also dumb, he said. But it was obvious to me. The boys would get all giddy, gathering up the flowers and water. I watched from the trees. Knew what it had done to Billy. Changed him into a nanny goat. 2 + 2. You didn't object? None of my business, Henry said. Can't say I like them coming around here, but it's only in the spring when the flowers bloom, so it ain't too bad. But you were still only guessing, Erica said. 2 + 2, he said again. Want that coffee? I've got powdered cream and sugar. A nice fellow keeps bringing me bags of sugar. Erica smiled. Thank you. Henry pulled himself upright and went to the area he used as a kitchen. He poured water into an old-style tin coffee pot. I sneak into town every now and then, he said, just to keep tabs on things. At night. Nobody ever sees me. But I seen all them new gals, and I knowed where they come from. 2 + 2. He knelt by a small fireplace and crumpled some kindling. Realizing that Henry had to start a fire to heat the water, Erica said, Don't go to all that trouble. We can forget the coffee. Not enough time, eh? Now me, I'm an old fella and I got all the time in the world. I make myself coffee like this every day. You're a young lady, but you don't have the time. Kind of ironic, ain't it? Erica smiled. It is, she agreed. He lit the fire and put the pot on. Mind if I ask you something personal? Henry said. None of my business, so you just say so. No offense taken, and none intended. You've been nice to me, the only one, and I don't want to step on your toes. Well, I won't know until I hear it, but agreed, no offense taken, Erica said. Okay, Henry said. Do you mind? It took Erica a second to realize that that was the question. Do I mind being a girl? Henry nodded. No. I like it. I prefer it, really, she said. If I had a choice, I wouldn't go back. I'm not too crazy about always having to imagine how I look to other people, not being able to go around looking like a bum on the weekend, but I like the way I move lighter and more graceful. I really like the clothes, especially the silky and lacy stuff. It's what I am. I like pretty much everything about it. It's better. More fun. I didn't realize how bland my life was before. She paused. What I don't like is that nobody asked me. He nodded. They trick you? Yeah. I'm glad they did, because I know I would have said no. How can you compare two things if you only know what one is really like? So I'm glad they did it, and the only way they could have done it was to trick me, but I don't like not being asked. I understand, he said, and she was certain he did. The water started boiling and Henry got up and made them coffee, which he served in cups that didn't match, with spoons that did. They talked about Henry's life, though Erica noticed that he avoided mentioning anything about his life before he'd moved to the Tolliver area. They talked about her life, and she was surprised that she did the same thing. Her life before Tolliver had been so conventional that it bored her, so she talked about the new things she was learning since she'd come to the small town. When she left, he walked her to her car, and she promised to visit him again. Not asking, understand, he said. I can pay, and I can pay you the gas money. Don't worry about it, she said. I'm fine financially. What do you need? He nodded. Well, if you're fixin' to stop at that store again, they carry kitchen matches, wooden matches. You probably don't remember them, but they come in very handy out here. I know what they are, she said. I'll bring some when I come next time. A sadness crossed his face. You're a good person, he said. He pulled a crumpled $10 bill from his pocket, handed it to her and turned to go back inside. Chapter 11. Chris LeGrand was Erica's first date. Lily had set them up and introduced them at the folk bar. Erica had practiced dancing. Unlike with most things, following was more difficult than leading, and she had done okay. She never had the impulse to lead, but she was new to interpreting the signals for various moves and messed up a few times. The foursome had stopped for a drink at the rock club, but left early because the music was so loud and the dancing so frantic. Lily served some snacks and drinks at their apartment. They talked, and finally she and Blake said they were going to call it a night and Erica and Chris could let themselves out. Erica and Chris tried to talk whisper, really, but quickly gave up. In the dead quiet apartment it was impossible to carry on a private conversation. So they started to make out. That was fun, and it got even more enjoyable when Chris began to feel her up. Her nipples got stiff. She let him take off her blouse and bra, and when he caressed her bare breasts she got very excited. Chris took her hand and put it on his crotch. She moved her hand back to her lap. What's the matter? He whispered. It's a little fast for me, she whispered back. His eyebrows went up. Oh, he whispered. She kissed him. He hesitated at first, then kissed her back and they made out for a while, his hand sliding over her breasts. Chapter 12. You didn't do it? Lily asked the next day. They were washing and cutting a load of fresh vegetables dropped off by the co-op. Lily. I thought you'd want to find out how it felt. I do, Erica said. But not so fast. Golly. I was a little nervous, too, Lily said. And you're right, it's probably not good to do it with the first guy you date. On the first date, Erica said. That, too, Lily said. With a lot of the girls, though, they still have that guy thing inside them that says go for it, if you have the opportunity. I did feel some of that, Erica confessed. I was a little conflicted. I'll bet. They laughed. Are you going to see him again? Lily asked. Maybe. He asked me and I told him to call. Playing hard to get. No, Erica said. Well, I hope you won't be offended, and I really appreciate you setting me up and everything. But you didn't like him, Lily said. No. I did, Erica said. It's that, you know, with my first guy and everything, I just sort of want to pick him out myself. You understand? Of course I do. Lily said. I should have thought of that. I'm sorry. Erica reached for her hand. Oh, it's not your fault. I know what you did for me and I'm really grateful. It's just the feeling I have. Do you have anybody in mind? Erica smiled. Well, there is this really cute guy. He came in once when I first opened the office. Blake brought him in with someone else. I thought we sort of established a rapport. As much as you can in 10 minutes anyway. Do you remember his name? Erica grinned. Of course. Josh Holiday. Oh, I know Josh. He is cute, isn't he? Do you want me to call him for you? Could you? I mean, don't say anything about, you know. I won't. He might not be the one I want, she said, but he sure is good looking. You'll love him, Lily said. He's very laid back, but he does know how to party. He's a good dancer, too. Erica groaned. I've got a long way to go in that department. You did fine, Erica. I'll get used to it, she said. I know, Lily said. Erica finished washing the celery. She wrapped it carefully before putting it in the crisper. Something on your mind, hon? Lily asked. Yeah, kinda, Erica said. Can I ask you a really personal question? That's what I'm here for, Lily said. I volunteered along with Blake to help you through the first months. And I'd like to also think I'm your friend. You are, Erica said. I couldn't ask anyone else. What is it? Are you happy? Sure, Lily said. Can't you tell? I mean, are you happy as a girl? Totally, Lily said. You're not? I am, Erica said. I can't imagine being a guy. I can't even imagine why anyone would want to be a guy. But it's still new and exciting to me. You've been a girl longer. Almost 3 years, Lily said. And I'll tell you, if someone announced a party in the square tomorrow where I could change back, I'd run so fast and so far they'd never find me. She said it with exaggerated fright and they both laughed. I'm joking, she said, but I'm serious, too. Erica nodded. And not having kids? Erica asked. That's the only thing I don't like, Lily said. But the way I think of it, a guy can't have kids. Not really. So that's just a special thing that the water and the flowers don't give you. Along with you know what. I know what, Erica said with a smile. Down there. That's disappointing. Yes, it is. And sex is done. That's right, Lily said. It feels a little weird at first, but after a while you start to think of it like regular sex. Erica nodded. I've been thinking about that, and I thought of asking you if you knew a guy who wasn't, you know, big? Yeah. Well, it's not like I know how all the guys in town are hung, Lily said, but I did date this one guy who's pretty small down there. Is he nice? The best, Lily said. Nice looking, but only moderately intelligent. He dropped out in freshman year, and my guess is because he could see that classes were only going to get tougher. I don't want to create the wrong impression. He's not a dummy or anything. Just an average guy. Erica nodded. Sound good? Lily asked. What's his name? Kyle Wagoner. I can introduce you. That might be good, Erica said. Chapter 13. The bookkeeping business was going well. Her social life was great. She was fit and happy. Keeping accounts wasn't the drudgery it had been in the city because she personally knew the people involved and had a lot in common with them, and the casual atmosphere of Tolliver made even the mundane parts of life as pleasant as they could be. Tolliver turned out to be a much busier place than it appeared to be on the surface. She found a vast number of clubs and organizations, almost all of them informal, and she learned origami, square dancing, and oil painting. Lily, Blake and she remained friends, but her social world expanded to include a couple girlfriends and a short list of guys. Lily had introduced her to Kyle and he'd been attractive and fun. And one night she gave him her virginity. They dated for a while, but the relationship petered out and she'd started dating a guy that managed the grocery store on the other side of the square. She was 2 months into that relationship when Lily got sick. It started with a slight stomach ache. The next day it was gone, but the day after that it reappeared and was more severe. She made an appointment with the town doctor, a girl named Susan Jacobs who had been graduated from medical school as Mark Jacobs, but had moved to Tolliver rather than opening a business in the city. The doctor couldn't find anything wrong. The pains got more severe over the following days and then abruptly went away. A month later another girl had the same problem, and a few weeks later a third girl complained of cramps. Jacobs compared diets, lifestyles, medical histories, and sent out blood tests. The last action was controversial because no one knew for sure what the tests might show. There was the possibility that Tolliver's secret would be revealed. Jacobs did as many tests as she could and told everyone she didn't think the blood would raise questions. It didn't, but neither did it reveal what was wrong. When a fourth girl got sick, Erica decided to visit Henry. There was no reason he would know anything, but it was his water and his flowers, and she felt she wanted to talk to someone outside of Tolliver. Chapter 14. He was pleased to see her, and with all the gruffness gone from his attitude, he let it show. She let him go through the lengthy process of starting a fire and heating water for coffee, making small talk all the while. When they finally sat facing each other with full cups of hot coffee, he asked, "You ready to tell me what you came to tell me?" Erica smiled. "I guess I have been rattling on about nothing." "No harm in that," he said. "It's just not like you." Erica nodded. "I do have something I want to talk to you about." He sipped his coffee and waited. "Some of the girls are getting sick," she said. "Stomach aches," he said. "Yes." "How did you know?" "Is that all?" "They're getting worse," she said. "And it seems to be spreading." He sipped his coffee. She started. "Well, the main thing about all the girls is that they used to be guys until they drank the water from the spring here and ate the flowers." "You want to know if that's connected to the stomach aches?" She nodded. He sipped. "I don't know how I expect you to know that," she said, "but I felt I needed to talk to someone." "They got a doctor there, in town?" "Yes." "What's he say?" She doesn't know what's causing it. She sent out some blood tests to a lab, but the first 2 came back normal. 2 more are due to come back this week." He nodded. "Do you think it's the water and flowers?" she asked. "You do," he said. "I can't think of what else it could be. None of the guys have gotten sick, and the doctor said none of the girls had eaten the same things, so it couldn't be food poisoning or anything like that. It's just so." He waited, but she didn't finish. "Contagious?" he asked. "No," she said. 2 are pretty close friends, but 2 others didn't really hang out with them at all. One girl's a lesbian and her girlfriend is fine." "A lesbian? Well, don't that beat all," he said. "They got the water and flowers?" "Yes. Used to be guys and now they're lesbians," he said. "Never thought of that. But like I said, her girlfriend isn't sick and they live together, so it's not contagious." "Seems not," he said. "It has to be the water and flowers," she said. "Lots of possibilities with illnesses," he said. "You don't think that's what it is?" "How long you been a girl?" he asked. She was surprised by the question and the change of subject. 10 months, maybe 11. The first few weeks I was sort of out of it, so I'm not exactly sure." "Why?" "Did I ever show you my garden?" "Bought the fence because the deer kept eating everything I grew, even before it was ready for picking," Henry said. "Birds and rabbits, too. There ain't many predators around, so they breed pretty fast." She'd seen the garden before but suddenly wondered where Henry had gotten the money for such an enclosure. The same applied to the goat pen. Neither was expensive, but neither was homemade. Unlike his shack, they were metal and manufactured. He had even spread a 6-foot wide strip of chain-link fence around the upright fence, knowing that deer wouldn't walk over it for fear of getting entangled. Once that thought came to her, she realized that metal items such as hinges and nails and a hammer, and the guns and bullets had to come from stores, just like the enclosures. Organic vegetables might not need fertilizer or insecticide, but where had he gotten the money for seeds and shovels and all the rest? She brought him coffee, salt, and sugar, but how had he acquired them before that? All these things had to be paid for with real money. After walking through the vegetable garden, Henry guided her toward the goat pen. Both goats glanced at them and then turned away. "Never did get to meet Billy, did you?" he asked. "I saw him one time when I came out. I walked back here to see if you were here." And how had he paid for the goats? Had he come to Tolliver with all the things he needed, and maybe a little saved up cash? Saved from doing what? How did he get the stuff here? "Yep," he said. "Ol' Billy, who became a nanny goat." "Right," Erica said. "When did you get the other one?" "A couple months after that," he said. They stood there looking at the goats. After a minute, Erica turned toward the shack, but Henry kept looking at the goats. "Do you have any ideas about the stomach problems?" she said. "If it's the water and flowers, do you think they might need to take more?" "That's what everybody will figure," Henry said. "But you don't think that's it?" "Didn't say that," he said. He turned to her. She saw the sadness had returned to his face. There was a silence and she waited for him to say something else, but he finally turned and headed back to the shack. Inside, he offered her another cup of coffee and she accepted. He took his time pouring and stirring before he handed her cup to her and took a seat. "You remember one time you asked if you could ask me something personal, no offense?" she said. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "Can I ask you something, no offense meant, and you can tell me it's none of my business and no offense taken," she said. "Only fair," he agreed. "Some of the things you have, the seeds, the goats, the fences, the guns and bullets, are store-bought. They have to be paid for with cash." "And where do I get it?" "You don't have to answer," she said. "I'm not normally someone who pries. You answered my question, so I'll answer yours. I just ask you to keep a confidence, is all." "Of course." He nodded and settled back in his chair. "Every 6 months some boys from the city come and bring me things, and I give them a list for next time," he said. "I don't need much, don't want much, but there are a few things that make life more tolerable." He didn't add to that, so she asked, "Who are they?" "Hirelings," he said. "I own a couple buildings on the square and they handle the rent and things like that. I also own most of this forest and the land we're on now. Not bragging, you understand. It's not through any brilliant scheme of mine. It was left to me by my mama and daddy. Those boys take care of the taxes and all that stuff." "You own this land," she said, astounded. "And the forest? And buildings in Tolliver?" "Not the whole forest," he said. "I didn't mean to sound too full of myself there, but I own a pretty substantial chunk of it, yes." "And you inherited it?" "That I did." "Wow." He smiled. "Wow," he agreed. "When I was a boy I lived in the city, but as soon as I got old enough I went away and lived on our farm. My folks stayed in the city. When they passed I left and wandered around a few years, trying to figure out life. Went to Canada, Hawaii, Mexico. Got married, but that didn't work out too good. I finally decided to move here." "Because you inherited the land and the buildings," she said, filling in the story. "In a way," he said. He seemed to want to leave it at that. By picking up his cup and sipping the coffee, he seemed to be saying he'd answered her question and the subject was shut. "You didn't know about the water and the flowers?" "I've been here over 25 years, he said, "and I told you how I discovered it. Or to give credit where it's due, how Billy discovered it." She tried to digest the new information. A hermit, but a rich one. He wasn't a squatter, he was a big landowner. He owned a couple buildings in Tolliver. "I can see I didn't satisfy you with my answer," he said. "You did," she said. "It's your business, your life. It's none of my business. It just takes a minute to change gears a little." "Uh-huh," he said. "I guess I'd better be going," she finally said, standing up. "Thank you for the coffee." He walked her to the door. "I don't believe we've ever been properly introduced, and since we're friends maybe we ought," he said at the door. We didn't exactly start off very formally, she said with a smile. Nope. I apologize for waving the gun at you. Should have said that before now. No offense, she said. I still owed you the apology, he said. He stuck out his hand. Name's Henry, he said. She grinned and took his hand. Erica. Got a last name, Erica? He asked. Bowman, she said. Erica Bowman. Still holding her hand, he said. Tolliver, Erica. Henry Tolliver. Chapter 15. As she drove back through the scrubland and then the forest, she thought about Henry Tolliver and what all the new information meant. Though she couldn't see where it actually affected her life, or the lives of those around her, it was fascinating to learn that Henry was who he was. His great or not so great granddaddy, as Henry described him, had founded the small town many years ago, and almost all the land in the county belonged, at one time, to the family. Over the years, they'd sold off various sections while raising money to build the town itself. The family had come to admit that there was nothing to attract people to Tolliver, no river or lake, no scenic mountain, no major crossroads, and later, no interstate road. The land would support crops, but wasn't particularly fertile. So they turned management over to their real estate people and moved back to their original family home, the city. Erica pieced the history together from what Henry had told her, but it wasn't until she was 100 feet from the turn onto the main road that she realized what else Henry had told her. She was so stunned that she pulled to a stop and sat there shaking. It took her 15 minutes before she felt steady enough to turn around and head back to the shack. Henry was waiting for her in front of his home. She got out of the car, her legs unsteady, and walked up to him. The sad look was on his face again. I'm sorry, he said softly. It's true? She asked, frightened that the answer would be what she knew it would be. He nodded. She took a deep breath. You should sit down, he said, taking her arm and leading her into the shack. She sat on the old couch, half doubled over. That's Billy in the pen, isn't it? She asked. Yes, he said softly. She nodded to herself. He changed back, she said. He didn't say anything. He drank the water and ate the flowers and changed into a girl goat, and now he's changed back into a boy goat, she said. Yes. And you didn't do anything to make that happen. It wasn't a question because she knew it was true. I'm sorry, he said. She gave him a weak smile. So all the girls are going to change back. That's what the stomach aches mean. He shrugged, helpless. How long do I have? I don't know, he said. Billy changed into a nanny goat a little over 3 years ago. I don't know how it works with people. Did you give him more water and flowers? She asked. Took Billy for walks every spring, and during the summer. Let him drink and eat when he was still a nanny. Nannies get a little rambunctious every 3 weeks, go into heat for a few hours, wagging their tails and bleating. Walk does good. But he still changed back, she said. A tear ran down her cheek. Dried flowers might have messed it up, he said. I gave him those once when he was a nanny. Maybe they need to be fresh. He was holding out hope, but they both knew it didn't mean anything. The boys in town must have used dried flowers because they changed guys into girls year-round. I don't want to be a guy, she said earnestly. She wiped away a tear and forced a smile. Well, at least I have 2 years left. If there was anything I could do. His voice trailed off. I know, she said quietly. Thank you. He watched her as she brought herself under control. I need to tell the others, she said. Chapter 16. It doesn't make sense, Lily said. I know 4 girls that have been girls longer than I have, and they're not sick. Maybe it doesn't work the same for everyone, Erica said. Lily started to say something but no words came out. Her lower lip began trembling. Oh, Lily, Erica said, pulling her close. Lily sobbed and said, I just wanted to be a complete girl. I know, Erica whispered. I know. I thought the longer I was a girl, the more girl I would be, that I would finish changing, you know, down there, too," Lily said, her voice racked with emotion. "Now it's all going away." "Maybe not," Erica said. "We'll find something." Lily's tears flooded down her cheeks. There was something strange about the girls who were getting sick. Lily was right that it didn't make sense that some would be skipped. Erica and Lily decided to keep the information about Billy Goat as secret as possible, telling only the girls with the most severe pains. Some had reached the point where the pain was debilitating and they were spending hours in bed each day. For Lily and another girl, the first who had experienced stomach pains, the discomfort was spreading to their chests and legs. Erica began working feverishly on a chart she created, her accountant's mind seeking order. It began with the dates the girls had become girls, and listed other girls who had their conversions both before and just afterward but who showed no signs of physical illness. She spent days interviewing each of the sick girls, getting as much personal history and as many personal habits as she could. What she was looking for was something they all had in common, but was also something not shared by the healthy girls. "A shame they have to go through this," Henry said. He was sitting in his chair, and Erica sat across from him in her usual place on the couch. "I guess they wanted it too much," she said. "I can understand that," he said. "I can, too," she said. "Natural thing for a girl to want to be girls all over," he said. "Most of them, anyway. Not sure about these modern girls." "Well, these girls did," Erica said. "That's why they kept sneaking out here and getting more water and more flowers. They hoped it would complete their conversions." "Wanted female plumbing," he said. "Yes. And what it did was work the other way instead," she said. "Overdosed, I suppose you could call it. With the best of intentions," she said. "Girls who didn't take extra doses are okay? We're all fine," she said. "Those other gals, they're going to become fellas again, you know." Erica nodded. Henry sipped his coffee. Couldn't be happy with the way they were. Everybody always wants more. That's what I got away from everybody always wanting more. She smiled gently. "You had the right idea. That, and everybody being in such a dang hurry," he said. "I think the bottom line of why I moved to Tolliver in the first place was to get away from the same things," Erica said. "Some people bring it with them," Henry said. "Don't be too hard on them," she said. "It's a natural instinct. But now they're not even going to be girls anymore. I wonder if Billy would have kept drinking from the spring and eating the flowers if I hadn't let him back there a few times. You figure his instinct when he was a nanny goat would have been to drink more and eat more?" "Hard to say," she replied. "I don't know how goats think." She smiled at him, but he didn't smile back. "I stopped doing it when he started changing back, you know," he said. "You mean you didn't take him to the spring anymore?" "Nope. Rather have a Billy than a nanny, so I let it happen." "He couldn't have had any understanding of what was going on," she said. "It must have terrified him." "Oh, I'm sure it did," Henry said. "You want to go out and say hello to him?" He stood up as he said it, and though she wanted to refuse, she politely stood with him. They took their coffee cups with them out to the pen. The two goats looked in their direction, and then away, just as they had the time before. "Say hello," Henry said. Erica walked up to the gate of the pen. She looked at the goats and frowned. "Probably more confused than ever, but he don't show it," Henry said. "I don't." Erica started. "Well, best as I can figure it is this way," Henry said. "The water and the flowers turned him into a nanny. Then too much water and flowers turned the nanny back into Billy." Erica stared at the two virtually identical nanny goats. "I kept him from the water and flowers," Henry said. "Until you told me your story about the stomach aches. Billy probably had the same aches when he turned back from a nanny into a Billy. So I figured wasn't nothing to lose if I tried the old combo on him again." "And he's a nanny?" Don't that beat all? Henry said. Course that's what it always did, turned billy goats into nanny goats. Did it once, can do it twice. Oh my God, Erica said. Yep. So Lily and the other girls who are turning back into guys can be turned into girls again. She said it as a fact, but there was doubt in her voice. Don't see why not, he said. One thing will be different, though. What? She asked, scared that there was something she hadn't considered. No trick this time, he said. They'll get to decide. They will, won't they? Figure they'll do it? He asked. She grinned. Oh, you bet they will.